we've removed over 40 million pounds of pollution
Wow.
from the world's ocean, river, and coastline. The vast majority of this pollution is plastic. So I want to share with your audience, when you think of 40 million pounds of plastic, plastic is typically very light.
Yes.
Just think of the mountains that we've removed, and it's only a drop in the bucket. We have a lot more work to do, and that's why we're going through a global expansion right now of our cleanup.
Welcome to the Sustainable Hospitality Podcast, where green practices meet profitable solutions. Join us as we uncover the latest trends in eco-friendly hospitality that not only safeguard our planet, but also drive down operating costs and boost revenue. Every week, we will bring you compelling conversations with industry leaders who are at the forefront of merging sustainability with economic success. Whether you're a hotelier, a resort manager, or a passionate traveler, this is your gateway to the future of sustainable hospitality. Tune in and let's explore how going green is good for both the earth and your bottom line. We're your hosts, Amy Wald and Kathy McGuire.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Sustainable Hospitality Podcast. I'm so excited to have with us today Jack Lighton, the Executive Director of the Four Ocean Foundation and a longtime colleague in the sustainability space. Jack, please tell our audience a little bit about your background and what led to your role at the Four Ocean Foundation.
Absolutely. Well, Kathy, it's so great to join you. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. I have a unique background. I started my conservation journey when I actually grew up as a little guy at a tiny little center here in South Florida called the Marine Life Center, which now is known as Loggerhead Marine Life Center. For many years, I grew up there with my parents. I attended a lot of programs. I fell in love with sea turtles. And then longer on in my career, I became a board member. So I was trying to give back to the institution and support them as a volunteer. And then, as luck would have it, I was offered the position as CEO, and I was with Loggerhead Marine Life Center for about 10 years and helped lead them through with the community a very large capital expansion, which was great to see. So we added a lot of capacity and saved a lot of sea turtles. From Loggerhead, I got to take my local ocean conservation passion and really cut my teeth, so to speak, on the global stage with a company called SeaLegacy. SeaLegacy is a global ocean conservation nonprofit
Mhm.
that was founded by the iconic Christina Mittermeier and Paul Nicholin from
Yes.
National Geographic, two outstanding scientists, filmmakers, and explorers. And at SeaLegacy, I got to understand how global ocean conservation policy is formed and how it moves through the system worldwide to advance conservation practices for the ocean. And then most recently, one of the positions that I'm most excited about is my joining of the Four Ocean Foundation. I worked with Four Ocean and its co-founder, Alex Schultz. Way back when I was at Loggerhead, he helped donate vessels to release our sea turtle patients offshore. He helped us revolutionize
Wow.
our cleanup program. And now that they've rolled out the foundation underneath the roof of the Four Ocean brand, they asked me to come on board to lead the global expansion of the organization. I couldn't be more proud.
Well, I'm so excited to hear that. You've had an incredible journey
Thank
and
you.
some pretty iconic organizations that you've worked for. I know I took my son to Loggerhead Marine Life Center when you just had two above ground pools and a couple of turtles in there. Since what he was, I
Yeah.
think, 2 years old when I
Yeah.
first started, and he's 32 this year, so a long time ago.
Do you remember
So,
the kiddie pools, the tents, the trailers? You remember all
yeah,
that, right? Yeah.
yes,
Well,
exactly.
it's amazing to see the passion of the community and the guests who have attended Loggerhead for many, many years and see what they have done to rebuild the center into what it is today. It's really a special place.
Yes, it truly is. So I want to ask you some questions that are going to relate to hospitality because that's the field that I'm in. And what inspired the creation of Four Ocean to begin with, and how has that organization evolved since its founding?
That's a great question. It's a wonderful story. So our co-founder, Alex Schultz, he is born and raised here in South Florida. He's a product of FAU, Florida Atlantic University. He was getting ready for his graduation. He, along with a number of his fellow students, are surfers. So they had saved up their money to go to the iconic surf spot in Bali, Indonesia. It's a
Wow.
beloved surfing location for surfers around the world. It was the first time that they had ever visited Indonesia. And of course, everyone thinks of Bali and they think of an absolute pristine tropical paradise. And in many ways, it is that.
Yeah.
But when they arrived to the beaches to get out into the ocean to surf, they were shocked at the
Mhm.
amount of pollution that were on these iconic surf beaches. And the surfing trip kind of, I mean, they went forward and had some surfing fun, but it kind of stopped. Alex and this group started to get to know a lot of the locals, a lot of local artisans, a lot of the fisher community, people that were fishing, and said, "My gosh, we've got to do something to help clean this up. What can we do?" And this surf trip actually turned into the creation of Four Ocean as we know it. What Alex did is with the artisan community in Bali, he asked them how could they repurpose some of the trash on the beach. So they identified that the drift nets and the ghost nets that were washing in could be repurposed into the recycled yarn. I'm actually holding a Four Ocean bracelet right here. So this yarn that holds the bracelet together is recycled by artisans from ghost and drift nets.
I
And then
have one as well.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
and then now we have I call this our iconic bracelet, the bracelet that started it all. Anything that was glass, we have recycled glass beads that are on top of the recycled yarn. And so
Mhm.
Alex just thought, listen, I want to try to raise money to employ frontline community members and leaders and rights holders from Indonesia to clean up the beach. And he did that. I mean, Four Ocean exploded really, really quick in 2016. So we're actually quite young.
Yeah.
Um, we sold hundreds of millions of bracelets and created, because of Alex's vision, a network, a global digital network that has about 25 million followers. It's a very,
Wow.
very large marketing channel. And ultimately, Four Ocean has advanced over these few years to do a couple of things really well. Number one, we've removed over 40 million pounds of pollution
Wow.
from the world's ocean, river, and coastline. The vast majority of this pollution is plastic. So I want to share with your audience, when you think of 40 million pounds of plastic, plastic is typically very light.
Yes.
Just think of the mountains that we've removed, and it's only a drop in the bucket. We have a lot more work to do, and that's why we're going through a global expansion right now of our cleanup operations. But the second thing that we are able to do really well because of our large network is we're able to storytell and educate individuals, educate business owners, and
Mhm.
educate policy decision makers on the impact of single-use plastic. And here's what we do well, and here's let me share what we don't do. What we do well is we encourage people to evaluate how they use single-use plastic. Just be
Mhm.
mindful of it. Number one. Number two, make sure you dispose of it properly. Keep it
Yeah.
out of the natural environment if you can. That's the
Mhm.
most critically important thing that we can do here at Four Ocean. We understand that first of all, you have to engage people magnetically. You can't shame them. You need to
Yeah.
engage and educate and have a conversation, number one. And we recognize that the cleanup side of our business is not where we're going to solve the problem. Where we're
Mhm.
going to solve the problem are with businesses and policymakers who ultimately, over the course of time, will rejigger their supply chains and help us get out of this mess. It took us a long time to get into this mess. It's going to take
Yeah.
us time to get out.
That's so true. And that's one of the things I think that's exploded recently is the awareness of
Yes.
this problem. And I think people are excited to be part of it, whether it's a beach cleanup or what have you, that it's no longer in the shadows. So my next question, I was going to ask, what is the biggest accomplishment so far? And I imagine that's that 40 million pounds so far. that you've collected and made into bracelets. So how do you engage with communities and businesses in your cleanup efforts, whether it's here in the US or abroad?
Well, that's a great question. So our co-founder Alex Schultz, who is the CEO of 4Ocean, he and I are convinced that individuals certainly, but even more importantly, businesses are the key to solve the plastic crisis. So
Mhm.
4Ocean has a very well-developed portfolio that caters to sustainable businesses, whether they're small businesses or mega multinational corporations, so that we can help them reduce their plastic footprint. So here's what we do with businesses. A lot of big, large global businesses will actually power up and fund a significant cleanup and allow us to remove hundreds of thousands of pounds of trash in one particular area. And
Wow.
they will become our partner and our supporter in that area. These are not just businesses, by the way, that are just trying to do a little good to do the proverbial greenwashing. These
Mhm.
businesses are vetted for truth, alignment in cause. They're really vetted in terms of what they're doing with their own product mix to reduce their impact as much as possible. So we're not doing business with every business per se. We're doing business with a lot of highly aligned businesses. And what's really interesting about that is just think for a moment, a global corporation that perhaps is producing 100 million pieces of X, and
Mhm.
that 100 million pieces of X, whatever it may have packaging. Some of that packaging may be plastic, some of it may be paper. What we're seeing with our business partners is the more that they get their teams involved in our frontline cleanups and they see the pollution crisis with their own eyes and their own hands, the
Yeah.
more that they're likely to create innovation in their supply chain and drive change. So we always have a perspective, and this statement was coined by our co-founder Alex: nudge, don't judge. This is a
I
crit-
like that.
this is a really critical piece in this conversation because first and foremost, a lot of people just quite frankly aren't aware of what happens with plastic pollution. They're not aware that plastic photodegrades into what's known as microplastics.
Mhm.
Microplastics you can't even see with the naked eye. Microplastic gets into our water, gets into our food supply, gets into air. And so every living being ultimately becomes affected by this issue. But if you don't know that that's the case, we have to work to get you on board with that knowledge. And so we nudge, we don't judge. We recognize that some businesses are, quite frankly, repeat offenders and don't want to
Yeah.
change. But we also understand that there are many early movers that are driving such massive change in their supply chain that we're seeing the reduction of hundreds of millions of pounds of single-use plastic on an annual basis based on various different product lines and various distribution models. So, really an individual can make choices. I have made a choice. I carry a water bottle with me everywhere. I just don't
Yeah.
use
Me too.
plastic water bottles anymore because of the amount of microplastics that come in them from the factory is not something that I want. An
Yes.
individual can make choices. A business can make a choice that affects 100 million pieces of product and ultimately 100 million individuals in one fell swoop. And so we recognize that businesses are going to be the solution to the plastic crisis.
Yeah, like you said, it's knowing what the problem is. And you and I live in Palm Beach County, Florida, and I worked with a local hotel resort,
Yes.
and they're located on the beach. And one of the things that's not on a P&L statement is how many pieces of plastic, single-use plastic that you're buying.
Yeah.
So we did a little research into their purchasing system, and we counted up all the cases of this and that and the other and how many pieces. It was 1.6 million pieces of plastic items, whether it was a plastic fork, a cup, to go container, whatever. 1.6 million pieces that was going into the landfill every year.
Right.
And the GM was shocked. He said, there's no way we're buying 1.6 million items of single-use plastic. But there it was, right in black and white. So it's really important for hotels not to just look at it, from a 30,000-foot level, really dig in there. How many pieces of plastic,
Yes.
are you throwing in landfill, or that's getting, people go to the beach with their plastic items and sometimes they blow away and they wind up in the ocean. So
Absolutely.
that was, you were talking about, I was going to ask you to explain the impact of plastic pollution on marine life and coastal ecosystems. Now, I first got really interested in this when I saw that turtle with the straw through its
Yes.
forehead. And like,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Well, listen, if anyone hasn't seen what is now known as an iconic video that started a movement, started a conversation, really, Google sea turtle and plastic straw. That's all you need to do, and the video will come up. It has
Yes.
billions and billions of views. And just think back a couple of years ago, Kathy, you and I were in the same boat here in Florida. No one was talking about plastic straws then, right? No one. Then the video happened, and it started a movement. It started a conversation. This poor turtle had ingested a plastic straw. It was caught in essentially its nose. A biologist in the middle of the ocean found the turtle, removed the straw. It was not pretty to look at, but it started a
Yeah.
conversation. It started an awareness in all of our heads and our hearts that, my gosh, I go out to dinner, or I go out to lunch, I go everywhere, and they're always putting a plastic straw. I don't need a lot of us said, I don't need a plastic straw. Save it. I don't need it. And then
Let
there
me
was,
interject something here, is because I saw a meme many years ago, and I may try to recreate it graphically. It said, "You're not a toddler, you don't need a straw."
yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you, I don't.
Me
There,
either.
there are some people that may need it, and we
Yes.
respect that. However,
Yes.
I think that the conversation is this. I mean, when you think of items that are single use, and think about all the items that we come into contact on a daily basis that are single use, a lot of us who are consumers, because we are all consumers, we have the plastic straw, we have the plastic cutlery, we have to-go containers, we have the lids for our Starbucks, the cups for our Star. When you think about all of the items that we come into contact with on a daily basis, we can create, each individual in the United States, we can create up to 8 pounds of trash per
Wow.
person per day, depending on
Per
our life.
day.
It's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild. In addition to that, what you were talking about, the awareness of the plastic conundrum, um, plastics are made with chemicals that have been identified to be endocrine disruptors. Okay,
Yes.
so I don't need to get into the debate about science, but I can tell you that the
Yeah.
global science community says plastic has endocrine disruptors and or forever chemicals. These don't leave your body, and they
Hmm.
change our body's composition. And there's a school of thought that we're seeing a lot of uptick in various different ailments. And it could be very much because of the amount of microplastics we're ingesting and that stay in our body. And so when you think about that plastic straw, it's not just like people think, oh gosh, you're trying to be so altruistic and just get rid of
Yeah.
the, like, don't be so, it's like, well, it's not just altruistic to be good for the planet. It's actually to save yourself and
Yeah.
be helpful for your own person. So anyway, it's a very interesting debate. I encourage everyone to look up what microplastics are, because again, plastic photodegrades into tiny microscopic particles we can't
Yes.
see, and then they're always with us. And that's
Mhm.
really the issue. When all the stuff that we can see, yes, we need to get that out of the natural world, out of the ocean, but it's all the stuff we can't see that's the really bad stuff.
And one of the things many years ago I thought about was, what did hotels do? What did golf courses do before there were to-go containers, before there was
Sure.
plastic and all of that? I had a golf pro tell me nobody thought they needed to be hydrated that much. They went out onto the golf course
Probably true.
and they just played golf.
Yeah.
They didn't need, several bottles of water along the way. Of course, if you're in South Florida, maybe you do. But to have they had water
I was
stations.
going to say, remember the
You
water
know,
stations with the paper cups, those triangle paper cups I
yeah,
grew up with?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yes,
we had more of
yes.
those.
So it's like it's just a habit we've gotten into. It's not something that, it didn't exist before. So why does it need to exist now, except for ultra convenience
Sure.
type of thing. And it's a circular thing. Not only is it bad for, marine life, and it's bad for our own health. I mean, imagine, you know, a truck full of single bottled water that's especially in South Florida. It's hot in the summer, really
And
hot. Imagine all that plastic leaching into that water. It's not a refrigerated truck like beer might be,
right,
but it
right.
should be
I know. I
because of what happens when that the plastic heats up that much. So,
know.
um, my next question for you is many hotels are in coastal areas. What role can they play in reducing ocean pollution? Maybe we've already talked about that, but do you have any ideas for like I'm hearing, well, we can't give people reusable items to take down to the beach if we're a beach hotel. What could you say to that?
Well, there's a couple. This is a really, I love this question. So thank you for asking it. Number one, you know that I'm involved in the tourism sector and I remain involved here
Yeah.
in Palm Beach County as a board member for the Palm Beaches, um, which is our local CVB, Convention and
Mhm.
Visitor Bureau. So we analyze data that's for the individual guest visitor and for the group guest visitors. And what
Okay.
we're seeing for folks that visit hotels and conventions, especially among younger people, is that they are making choices. They are forcing their planners or their travel agents to make choices on their behalf that are more sustainable. They're looking for more sustainable options. And this is becoming more and more prevalent. And again, as we especially look at the younger generation, they're demanding hotels, resorts, and convention centers
Yeah.
act better, right? So here's one thing that can be done very quickly. Um, Hotels and resorts can go away from single-use plastic water bottles if they are adamant that they're not going to give guests a reusable branded container upon check-in. Maybe it's an entry-level hotel property and they don't have that kind of budget. If they're
Hmm.
only going to sell or offer single-use water containers, one of the best choices that you can make is to switch out from plastic to aluminum cans.
Yeah.
There's the traditional aluminum like a soda can, and then there's the screw top aluminum can. The screw top aluminum cans are actually very popular to use for reuse perspective when guests are on property. They can reuse the aluminum can quite frequently. That's one simple way. Now, is the price point higher? Yes, it is a little bit higher. But you can immediately brand that your property and your hotel or your convention center is making a concerted effort to reduce the single-use plastic impact. That's one simple change. The second change, if a hotel, resort, or convention center has a food cafe or restaurant or bar, is to eliminate the straws on delivery. Okay,
Hmm.
so make straws available, but
Upon
only
request.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so now listen, I know that servers and bartenders will say that could slow me down, but because it's just easier from an ops perspective to constantly slap the straws in. But that comes down to training, and I'll tell you what I've seen a lot of really responsible hoteliers do in their food service areas is the food service staff and or the bartenders will have aprons with the large pocket in front, and the straws are right there, so that if a guest asks them, they don't have to run back to a station. They have it on
Yeah.
their person. They can give it to them. It's wrapped in a paper, right, and it just goes right in. So there's a lot of ways that hotels can make small, and resorts and convention centers can make some small changes. But I think what's really interesting is for GMs and guest services leads to be, have their eyes on the horizon. It's going to become a requirement even more quickly than I think that we anticipated with younger travelers and younger
Hmm.
conference attendees for them to actually book and stay and require their properties to be as responsible as they possibly can. So there's a lot of little ways that organizations can make micro changes that could have mega impacts to reduce their plastic footprint.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's more of a market demand because the US isn't real big on regulating
Right.
things like that, like the Europeans are. And
Sure.
so, we can't expect that to ever happen. probably not in my lifetime anyway.
Yeah.
and
Who
so
knows?
and so the market will definitely drive that.
Sure.
So there, what kind of partnerships or programs can hotels participate in to support the Four Ocean mission?
There's lots. There are a lot of programs, and there's more that are coming that will be available through the foundation in the coming months as we expand. So first and foremost, if you're a beachside hotel, or if you're a hotel that's close to any type of coastal ecosystem, there are plenty of activities that we can encourage hotels to subscribe to for their guests, where they would do a walkabout on the beach. They would have a beach bag, and they would participate in beach cleanups. They would collect trash, and they would give it back to the property for proper disposal or recycling if it's available. There are a lot of opportunities for hotels and resorts to actually carry our recycled bracelets and some of our branded items on property. So, for example, a property can subscribe to Four Ocean. We have a beautiful cobalt blue stainless steel water bottle with our brand on it. If they so choose, they can
Mhm.
subscribe and sell or provide those items, just to give you a sense of what that does. So each bracelet sold helps Four Ocean remove 5 pounds of marine debris, mostly plastic, from the environment. When you get into items like water bottles, that can help us pull 10 pounds of trash out of the environment. So it's kind of a win-win for the property.
Mhm.
If they're helping us to sell the bracelet, they're actually helping us to remove plastic. If they're actually providing, selling, or gifting our water bottle to a guest on property to use as a reusable water bottle container, again, there's another impact. So we can do everything with partners, from create an experience type of impact, beach cleanup, park cleanup, riverside cleanup, you name it, parking lot cleanup. It doesn't matter. We just want to get trash out of the environment. Or we can skew into branded products, partnerships as well.
You know what I'd like to see more of? I saw an image of it was a post right as you start walking towards the beach, and it had these little the carry containers like you would get at the grocery
Yeah,
store, the handheld containers, and they were all hanging on this post, and people could grab one and take out to the beach with them, and as they're, they could throw it in there and then bring it back. There was a trash can right there. So
I
it's
love it.
like I love that idea. And since you're so involved in our community, maybe you could get the people that oversee the parks to install those at all the beach entry levels.
I
So
would
I,
I would
that's a
love that.
challenge for you. I'll
Thank you
send you
for
that image. It's wonderful.
thank you for planting the seed.
Yeah, another innovation on the horizon. So we've talked about Four Ocean, and I'm personally, I'm always curious about how things are made. Everything. First of all, about the aluminum versus the plastic.
Mhm.
Not only can it be recycled, it can endlessly be
Correct.
recycled. A
Yep.
lot of plastic, it's not good for, being recycled. There's a lot of issues and stuff with that. But the
Yeah.
aluminum, there's no issue there. And so how how what's your process? What company have you perhaps contracted with when you get that plastic and stuff out of the ocean? Where does it go, and what happens to it to make those bracelets and everything
Oh,
else?
such a good question. I'm so glad you asked. Okay, this is the most complicated part of our business, and
Yeah.
you gave us a preview. Let's talk about aluminum and glass. Those are really the most coveted recyclable materials, aluminum being
Mhm.
number one. So aluminum
Yeah.
is the most coveted item for recycling around the world. The reality on plastic, you may have heard a conversation about something called the Global Plastics Treaty. I don't know if you've heard some rumblings about, and
Yeah.
a lot of people ask me, "Hey, Jack, what is this Global Plastics Treaty thing all about?" Well, it's actually really fascinating, and I learned a ton through my time here at Four Ocean, through a CEO by the name of Fisk Johnson. Fisk Johnson is the CEO of SC Johnson family of companies, one of
Oh.
the largest consumer packaged goods companies in the world, but also one of the most sustainable companies in the world. And Fisk Johnson, as a CEO here in the Americas, has been a champion to explain why major corporations like SC Johnson need a global plastics treaty. The reason why plastic is so complicated to recycle is it's manufactured with different chemical compositions, sometimes
Yes.
by country, many
Yes.
times different composition by continent. And so what happens is there's not an easy way for a global recycling plant to treat all plastics. All
Right.
plastics have to be treated very differently for recycling. And the process to get the raw material, call it the plastic trash, properly recycled is very, very complicated. So here's the
Yeah.
issue. For one, some plastic can't be recycled because it's either made in a way that won't allow it to be recycled, or it's photo degraded too far already.
Yeah.
It can't go through the process. Now, the plastic that can be recycled, the local recycling facility, there are very few in the US. Our largest recycling facility is massive and it's in Indonesia. We'll have to know exactly how to wash, treat, and then turn the plastic into, I'm just going to, boil it down, no pun intended, into
Yes.
pellets,
Yes.
into
Yeah.
plastic pellets. From there, those pellets can be repurposed into new plastic goods. So there's a real sort of factory process, if you will, with a production line that's pretty complicated, where you have to take plastic through this treatment process to get it into a proper pellet form. And again, a recycling plant in India, for example, or in Indonesia or Australia, maybe have a very, very different process to recycle items into pellets than a recycling plant in Europe, for example, just because globally plastic isn't created equal. It's created very differently. And that's why Fisk Johnson's like, listen, I sell products all over the world and I want to be able to recycle them in a unified way, and I can't. And nor can
That's
any
amazing.
other mega corporation. And that's one of the reasons why we need the Global Plastics Treaty.
I would like to encourage them to get that word out because I try to stay on top of all this stuff, and I've
Yeah.
not heard of Johnson in what they're doing.
Yeah, Fisk
So
Johnson. He's a
Fisk
he's a
Johnson.
he's an incredible leader. If anyone is curious about seeing a global CEO, a business leader of a consumer-based company, right? They're making plastic products and they're selling them, but they want to do it more responsibly. Please Google Fisk Johnson,
Absolutely.
Fisk Johnson, and also Google the Global Plastics Treaty. I actually think that the Global Plastics Treaty conversation was demonized. Um, and I love to see how Mr. Johnson stepped forward as a global CEO, raised his hand and said, "Hey, I produce a lot of plastic every year. I'm just trying to do it more responsibly, but I can't until we get this treaty in place."
Yeah.
I never had that perspective that he gave
Yeah,
to the.
that sounds incredible. I'm really glad to hear that. I think for a lot of people, and this is one of the things I try to focus on, is people say, "Well, I recycle it." It's like, but I did a little storyboard, I don't know, back in 2007, and it was a day in the life of a plastic cup
Oh, yeah.
from beginning to end. I mean, I had a storyboard with images like, and I had them taped all across the wall in the back of the house at this hotel I was working at. And it's that first we drill, and then it goes to the refinery, and then it goes to the plastic makers, and then it gets put on another truck, and then and on and on and on. And it was, I don't know how many feet long of all
Yeah,
these separate pieces of paper with the day in the life. So, but that's what I try to encourage people. It's like, yeah, I know you're recycling. That's great, but let's reduce,
sure.
what we're using. So you've talked a lot about For Ocean, and I know that we can't possibly have that happen without the foundation to
That's right.
raise the money to get the
Yeah.
work done. Tell us more about the foundation and what your hopes are for it.
Well, thank you for asking. So, Alex Schultz, our co-founder and CEO of the Four Ocean Public Benefit Corporation. That's the
Yes.
for-profit side of our brand. The
Yeah.
Public Benefit Corporation is also a certified B Corporation, so the highest level of mission-centric public benefit is what our corporation is. He
Yeah.
always envisioned a model like Patagonia. So
Hmm.
Patagonia, we aspire to have the same model that Patagonia has. Patagonia, for example, is a for-profit corporation. If you buy a hat or a sweater or a backpack, proceeds from that sale of the good is dumped into their foundation. And it's the Patagonia Foundation that goes forward and funds the procurement of, in their case, terrestrial land that they put in perpetuity trust, essentially create
Yes.
a international park that's preserved. There will never be
Yeah.
building on that land. Alex really loved that model. And there are many other brands that have a model like that, like Whole Foods Market, like
Yep.
Tom's Shoes. Um,
Yes.
for Ocean, I like to now call us a branded duplex. We have one brand at the top. It's For Ocean. Everyone's always going to see us at For Ocean, but we have two doors that people can enter. On the left side of the duplex, they can enter the for-profit side, and they can buy our bracelet, they can buy our water bottles, our shirts, they can buy our items, and know that that helps to fund our cleanups. And then on the right side of the duplex, and there's a firewall, there's two separate management teams,
Wow.
two separate boards of directors. On the foundation side, if they decide to walk through that door, they can make a tax deductible donation in the United States and through many countries throughout the world, honestly, where they can then give money to support the cleanup operations. So the cleanup operations of For Ocean, meaning our employed captains and crew around the world, they're under the foundation side of the house. And so when people donate to For Ocean, they're donating directly to our cleanups. And we have a very, very bullish goal. We just received a $7 million matching gift commitment to expand.
Yay.
I know, it's huge. We're so excited. So for dollar, up to 7 million, we will have matched. And we have a goal to expand our cleanup efforts. We want to remove over 100 million pounds of plastic and marine debris in the next 5 years. Now, keep in mind, since
Great.
2016 to today, we removed 40 million. Okay.
Wow.
Next five, we want more than double that. We want 100 million
Yes.
out. And so we have the infrastructure in place. We have the new, we want to expand in our existing cleanup markets, and we want to roll out our cleanup efforts in new markets. And we understand the most impacted areas around the world where our teams need to be to address the plastic pollution crisis. And we want to get there right away.
Oh, I love that. That sounds so exciting. And I want to be a part of it. So we're going to talk after.
Good.
And I know even though you're located, your headquarters is local to me,
Yep.
us. You're doing this worldwide. You're raising money worldwide. You're pulling plastic out of the oceans worldwide, and all of
Right.
that. So I want our audience to know that just because if you're not in Florida, it doesn't matter because you're a global operation. So
Great point.
I know you said you had programs for hospitality. So if the hotel, part of being, environmentally and socially responsible is community involvement. So, who would they contact if they would want? I don't know if you have a training program or you
Sure.
have something or you have like a packet that says, here's how you can engage your guests and your employees in your, where your footprint is, where your hotel is located in participating.
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. There's two teams within the For Ocean ecosystem that can help develop programs for our hospitality partners and or for businesses. We have a dedicated B2B business team that creates programs fit for use for businesses. There are some syndicated programs that folks can easily subscribe to that are very turnkey. And then there's programs where folks want to go deeper and make it really customized to their business, where our teams can help them create those programs. There's also going to be campaigns throughout the year where hospitality partners and businesses can support these campaigns. I'll give you a for example. We have a campaign that's launching next week that will address the deluge of plastic that gets into the ocean during Indonesia's rainy season. There's a specific campaign, and there's some plastic containment booms and some ships that we are positioning to capture this. So businesses can actually sponsor this campaign and be on the
Oh,
mast. Businesses can sponsor additional campaigns For example, around World Oceans Day, which is the entire month of June, but
Yeah.
specifically June 8th, businesses can
Yeah.
support our global World Oceans Day education and fundraising campaigns. And when I say that, I mean, so what would be the benefit? Let's say I'm a fabulous multi-chain, multi-country hotel property. Why would I want to support Four Oceans World Oceans Day campaign? Well, if sustainability is part of your corporate DNA, that this is one reason to do it. If you're very engaged on reducing pollution as a corporate brand, that would be the second reason. And third and finally, again, I'm going to go back to the fact that the Four Ocean brand ecosystem has 25 million followers. Are we the biggest brand on Instagram? Absolutely not. Are we one of
Yeah.
the biggest brands on Instagram for sustainability and ocean conservation? Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So if you want to put your thumbprint and you want to join a team that is radically transparent, radically productive in terms of what we do, in terms of addressing this crisis, then Four Ocean really is a great opportunity to get their name connected with us and partner so we can partner together and get a lot of eyeballs on the campaigns that they could help us sponsor.
I would imagine that hotels could actually, if they choose to participate, which I hope they do, they could help in that campaign by at least sharing this information out. We
Yes.
are involved, and
Yes.
and to create a higher level of awareness that this is going on, and pat themselves on the back. This like, and make
Sure.
sure they get out those Instagram posts and things like that. It's like, this is what we're doing. You should do it too. Join us. We're not trying to have a competitive edge on,
Yes.
on our community involvement. Let's form a coalition or something.
We're all in it together. Absolutely, Kathy. And if anyone wants to look at the Four Ocean LinkedIn page, a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of our business partners, we share content on our LinkedIn page that's very business centric. And you can see a whole host of international businesses that have partnered with us, and we are sharing this partnership content, and then you'll see that those large international brands are also sharing this as part of their sustainability, give back and investment.
That's great. Are there any final words, something I may not have asked you that you'd like to share, or have we pretty much covered?
Well, first, I want to
Oh,
thank you because you've always been a sustainability champion. You've always been someone that's forward looking in terms of how to solve challenges. And I've always really appreciated working with you in that regard and in so many other regards. We've been friends for a long time. Number one,
yes.
thank you for this conversation. Number two, I think the most important thing that we can always do is realize that every single one of us, every single individual can create a ripple effect, no matter how small or how big it is. Each one of us can solve this challenge, and it's going to take each one of us to make a concerted effort to drive some change. So hopefully folks can subscribe to our channels. We do our best to educate, we nudge, we don't judge. And
Yes.
more folks that we can get involved in the conversation, the better. So thank you for helping us do that.
Absolutely. And thank you for your time and for explaining all of this to us. It's invaluable. It's one of my best interviews. I really appreciate it, Jack. I did the math. It's been about 17 years we've known each
Yeah.
other. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
had to do
incredible,
that this
right?
morning. I was like, how long has it been? So
We
I'm
need to
really grateful.
well, let's plan our 2 decade anniversary party. We'll do a beach cleanup.
Yeah, let's do. Thank you, Jack, very much. Take care. Talk to you
My
soon.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Sustainable Hospitality Podcast. If you're ready to take meaningful action and set your property apart as a leader in sustainability, my company, Sustainable Hospitality Solutions, is here to help. Our Achieving Green Keys certification training program provides hotels with a clear step-by-step path to earning this internationally recognized ECO certification. Please go to sustainablehospitalitytraining.com. Thank you.